amateur players take their game to the next level.
There's no crying in baseball.
Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Candlesticks always make a nice wedding present.
Oh, people take vacations shorter than that. Pick me out a winner, Bobby. Now here is your show and go team.
Slow count. Let's go. Let's go. Come on, Tim.
Oh, I'm holding a piece of paper.
Oh, you ruined it.
Oh, you said slow clap.
Oh, got it, man. We're trying to get hype for this episode.
I felt something there, man. Wait, edit that out. Edit.
Did you eat something
Pause,
funny at lunch?
pause.
Is that what happened? You ate something funny?
Clap your hands. How about that song? I can make your hands clap. My kids
I can
are all
make your
over that.
hands
That's
clap.
a good song.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I got carried away.
Well,
there.
I mean, every day in the car, nonstop. It's still good. I like it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Show and Go. This is a baseball podcast to help and educate the amateur player as well as coaches and parents about the game within the game. My name is Tim Dillard, and I've been a professional pitcher for 16 years. That can't be right. Somehow that's right.
Well, does that you count the amount of time you've been on the field playing, or like in the dugout?
No, I don't play that much. I'm a bullpen pitcher. Me and the bat boy do about the same amount.
So if you take away the amount of time you've actually played on the field, how many years have you played?
How many years? 2 months. Probably not even that. That's a great question, though. We'll have to bring in a statistician later. Yeah.
Statcast.
And the guy
Tim's
questioning my ability to my left
What's going on in here?
is big leaguer and 2016 World Series MVP Ben Zobrist. And across from me is usually strength and conditioning amazing coach Josh Costello. He is not there, and I'm staring at a chair.
He's
Unbelievable.
You know what? He's somewhere across the country
out.
training other professional athletes. And you know what? I'm the one that he's trained the longest. So you'd think he would be sitting next to us and really doing what's most important right now. But he's chosen to train people all over the place.
Who do you think he's training? Who's the big name he's training? Right?
He has got quite a reputation.
He might. I don't know.
You think he's training?
He's probably
Thor?
a celebrity trainer. He's probably training Lady Gaga or somebody like that.
No.
right
He's
now.
training Thor for the next Avengers movie. Maybe
Thor.
or the Hulk.
I'm distracted.
Sorry, I didn't need to bring up Lady
And that
Gaga.
distracted person is the head baseball coach at Trevecca Nazarene University here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, Ryan Smaltz. Hey, man.
Thanks, man.
What do you do?
Wait,
Lady Gaga. Song.
copyright infringement.
Sorry.
Ben, that was your fault for bringing up Gaga in here.
Well, what if I say A Star is Born?
Oh,
Are
my
we
gosh.
going to get in trouble for that too? A
Sing it-
Star is Born.
I haven't seen it yet.
Let's go. I don't know if it's out anymore. It's got to be some.
No. We can watch it illegally on my phone.
It's pretty good.
You think Lady Gaga's a baseball fan at all? You think she's a
I don't know.
Dim Tillard fan? You got a lot of
She-
followers.
Does she follow
Have
you?
checked?
No, she doesn't follow me on Twitter. I just
Yet.
checked. So she lived for a time, for several months, across from my uncle.
Is this true?
Yeah, this is totally true. My wife's uncle and aunt in Oregon.
In Oregon, what was she
Yeah.
doing there?
She was like
Riding.
rehabbing an injury in riding. Yeah.
Oh,
And this was about the
She
time
could use Costello if she's rehabbing an injury like that machine
good
he's
point.
got, right?
Well, if she was training with him, she might not have been hurt. I don't know where she got hurt. Maybe jumping at the Super Bowl. Was that last year?
You mean when she flew in from the top of the
when
stadium or whatever?
She did that jump.
That rendition of Star Spangled Banner that she sang, that was one of the best I've ever heard.
Did
Do you
she
guys
sing
have
it?
any? Yeah.
Wait, at the
Didn't-
Super Bowl?
Yeah.
No, she did the halftime. I thought Pink.
No.
Didn't Pink sing it?
I don't know. Doesn't really hold a candle to Juliana. She's got the Star Spangled
It is true.
Banner.
Bro,
down.
she kills it.
Yeah, she does. They should have her to the Super Bowl.
How do you get on that list? I just want
know.
to go to the Super Bowl.
Jules just when she's singing in front of all the people, like when you know the Cubs and other teams have had her, she just owns it. I mean,
She's such a
her
pro.
voice doesn't waver. Like she has no nerves.
Yeah. Ice in her veins. Yeah, she's.
We need to get her in here to talk about performing under pressure. Right?
Exactly.
That would
That's
be
a
awesome.
great point. That's a great point. We need to do that sometime.
Who's
We
going to
should
watch
get
it? Who's going to
somebody
watch
like
the kids?
Good point. Another good point.
Well, she can take my seat. I'll watch the kids for an episode. And she can.
Costello
tell
can
us
do
some
it. He can
secrets.
train them. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Train my children.
Run some drills.
Now that fascinates me though. Like people from other, non-sport occupations, entertainers, how they, just the thought process. I think there's a lot that can be learned there.
There's a
Thought
lot of
process
similarities.
from
I think
other
talking to
performance.
Juliana, there's a lot of similarities
Yeah.
in being, the preparation and the mindset that goes into preparing and the pressure and all that stuff, preparing in the moment.
I like people, but I don't want to sing in front of them. I barely want to talk or get seen by them.
Whatever, Tim. Let's be honest. You're always looking for an audience.
Hey,
That is so true.
I'm going to change my Twitter bio. Always looking for an audience.
All right, what are we talking about today?
Talking about expectations. Expectations today. I think something everybody can relate to. Expectations you place on yourself that others place on you, and the effect it has on you, in life and in baseball. I think it's on various levels as professionals. You guys have a lot of expectations, fans, media, younger players. Probably, even though they're not on that stage, they feel the same way. I would say, that professionals, feel the same way that they do. But just the weight of that and how it can affect you. You guys ever been affected by this?
Yeah, you know what? I want to start with this question, which is, when you were younger, as a kid, when is the first time you remembered feeling those expectations on you, and what were they?
I don't remember when I was a kid.
Wait, you're still a kid.
I'm still a kid. No, I dropped a ball in 10th grade as a catcher that I should have caught. It wasn't really my ball, but I called it, and then I dropped it, and I remember thinking, since it lost the game, I was like, they probably expected me to catch that.
I remember when I was probably, I would say 9 or 10, and had a little bit of success. You make an all-star team, and then you're kind of expected to do it again, right? Like the next year, people know that you did well.
You're supposed to be
You're
good.
supposed to be good. Yeah. And a quick story here is my third year as a head coach at Trevecca, we had won conference championship. We won our tournament championship. We had a lot of success. And we're riding on the bus going back from our conference tournament back to campus. And I got a trophy in my seat. You think you'd be on top of the world, right? And I was. I was really happy that we won. But the only thing I could think of, it was one of the scariest times for me as a coach, because the only thing I could think of was like, oh, crap, I got to maintain this. Now what? We got to build on this. I mean, there's expectations on us now. We're supposed to be this. We're supposed to be that. And it scared the crap out of me. And I think that's kind of how I remember feeling when I was younger too. A little bit was, and it was. I don't think anybody, my parents didn't put all this pressure on me or coaches or anything. I put it on myself, But I remember just thinking, yeah, you're supposed to be good. Now you got to go and back it up.
Yeah.
Do you remember feeling like that?
Yeah, I definitely remember the personal expectation and pressure that I felt, because I watched other people succeed, and to me that was the goal. The goal was succeeding. So, if I didn't succeed, the expectation for me always, even from a young age, was I expected myself to win and to succeed and to be really good. And so if I wasn't, then I was not meeting those expectations. And that was not based on what anybody else told me. That was inborn. That was something that I already felt, and the culture just promotes it, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
But when I remember being 5, 6 years old playing sports, whether it was baseball or soccer or you name it, and I felt this pressure to win. I just wanted to win. Like if I lost the game, or like that was the worst thing I could think of at the time. I expected myself to win always from a young age. And that's the competitive nature I think people are sometimes born with, and they just that's the only thing they can think about when they're young. But I remember as I got older and already putting a bunch of pressure on myself, it was these conversations sometimes in the car after the game, like, well, why did you do this, or what happened there? And there was, the questions were just based off of like things that didn't go well or things that did go well. And, my parents having this conversation, but I read that, they were just wanting to have a conversation about it. I read those things as like, well, you didn't meet the expectation. You got to be a little bit better than you were, And so I think the thing was, like, my parents always supported me. They always came and watched. They always cheered me on. They always knew that I was really good and told me that I was good and things like that. But then there was the questions. that I was like, well, maybe I wasn't good. So then the questions just caused me to wonder if maybe I just am not doing well enough, and I was already putting that on myself internally as well anyways. So that's part of why I bring this up, is because I think a lot of kids feel that. Some of them feel it on their own early on. Those are the real competitive ones and the ones that are probably really good. The ones that don't feel it quite as much, they're going to feel it for the first time when someone else brings it up, whether it's a coach or a parent or a sibling or a friend or somebody that kind of points it out and says, hey, why'd you do that? You messed that up or something. And then all of a sudden they start the expectation game and go, oh, well, I didn't realize I was expected to do that right all the time.
So what would you tell? I mean, I don't want to skip to the very end here, but what would you tell somebody like that? Somebody that may be hearing this, thinking about expectations. Or, oh yeah, I can. I can relate with that. What would you tell them?
Man, I mean,
I think I would tell them just to notice it. Just a general awareness and notice that it's happening to them. Like, hey, this is. Yeah, I feel the weight of these expectations. Kind of. Don't try to fix it, but just try to notice that it's happening.
To be honest with my son this summer, we dealt with some of this because I could tell he had a lot of expectations for himself. And, being a major league player's son in Chicago playing Little League, like you can imagine people know that
he better be good.
His last name is Zobrist. He's supposed to be good at baseball and whatnot, but he's just starting. He's just learning all this stuff just brand new. A lot of the other kids have a head start because he's been traveling all over the nation with us.
Yeah.
And he's 9 getting his first taste of Little League, and these other kids have been playing since they were 4 and 5. Mm. So his expectations immediately were that he was supposed to be really good because he watches Dad, and Dad's good. And I kept telling him, buddy, listen, just lower your expectations. It's going to be really hard. You're not going to be very good. It's a skill that's built over the long term. And right now I said it's not even about winning, losing, doing well, not doing well. That's not what this is about at all. I said, I got three goals for you. If I have any expectations, these are my expectations of you. I said, number 1, I want you to have fun because you should be out there recognizing you're a kid. You get to play a game with other kids. Like, even if it's hard, I want you to try to do something in the day to have fun. Maybe it's just kicking dirt with your buddy on the field. If that's all you can do to have fun that day, do it. I want to see you have fun because I want you to come back and want to do it again.
Or do the floss dance.
Stuff like that.
And my little boys' team.
Just do the floss dance. If that's all you can do that day, then that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, right,
find a way to have fun. That's what I'm saying.
Rule 1,
because
that checks out.
The game itself is so hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to have fun. So try to focus on having fun. The other thing, one of the other things I said to him was, yeah, you're going to try hard. I want you to try hard. It's not easy. It's about effort. It's when you go out there, whatever the skill is, try your hardest.
Yeah.
Do the best that you can and know that that's good enough right now. That's good enough. Don't ask anything more of yourself than to try your best. Because you're going to fail a lot. Expect the failure that's going to come. But at least know that you're putting the effort forth. And I can't even remember.
Number 3.
It obviously wasn't that important because I can't remember it.
Yeah, what was number 3?
It was probably something about about not crying. No, I'm kidding.
Don't ask questions.
That's great.
No, well, I mean, I can relate. I mean, my dad played in the big leagues, and he was a coach, my whole life.
Yeah.
And I had 2 older brothers that were always better than me at everything. And by the time I got to high school, everyone's like, well, hey, can you play shortstop like your dad, or can you hit like one of your brothers? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm just my own person, and that's kind of how
You're definitely that.
Yeah. I just kind of dealt with that as, I'm not them. I'm not them. And maybe my older brothers felt that a little bit, being a big leaguer's son. But for me, I always was like, no, I'm going to be me. And when it comes to my kids now, I just tell them, be you. If you go out there and you play, you signed up to be a part of a team. My expectation is you to show up, right?
Yeah.
And be in the mindset that whatever a baseball player is, or if my little girl's playing soccer, it's like you are going to do that because you signed up and you're part of a team. So that's kind of my rule. Like, that's what I expect. Now, I don't care if you score any goals or hit any home runs. I don't care about any of that. I won't even address that. because right now at their ages they just can't. They can't do a lot. Their level of performance is not elite. So, but it's not about that because I was terrible. I was terrible until I'm still bad.
Just getting by.
Yeah, just getting by. But I don't feel like I peaked until my junior year of high school, and I was just trying to learn of what kind of player I was. But I had one of my son's coaches, and I'm going to totally throw this guy under the bus. I can't remember his name.
Tire tread all over his back.
Yeah, it's just. He told me about my 9-year-old kid. He said, "Hey, this is the level at 9 years old when they decide if they're going to take this serious or not." And so it was during the season. So I was out in Colorado, but I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sort of
9 years
disagree with you there." Like 9 years old. Like 9 years old, I played 1,000 sports. I'd make them up in my head and go run out in the yard and do something. Like you have no frame of mind of structure. You don't know what's coming next. So the expectations that are put on kids, it's not their expectations. Kids should not. They should not worry about it.
We're getting into a touchy area here. You know that, right? Because there's going to be there's a lot of people that
call us. Ryan, what's your phone number?
9 years old, there's some major tournaments out there, and some kids that have been playing since they were 2.
I don't buy into
and they're
that.
like doing training like we're doing in the weight room.
Okay, if you want to do a travel ball team and pay for your kid to be out there because your kid takes it that serious,
I'm going to go ahead and step outside. You guys go ahead and finish this conversation.
I'm just saying you're going to pay the money to go out there and play. Like, yeah, take it serious, but it's park and rec ball, park and rec, man.
Yeah, well, I understand that there's
we're all having fun.
To me, it's about the level and what the kid really wants out of it. Because if they're 9 years old. Yes, there's a level of, as an adult, as a parent, where you're going to help your kid to develop as a person through their sport, through their athletic activity.
You signed up for it. It's a character thing.
It's a commitment. It's a character thing.
You're going to learn. If you don't play baseball another day in your life, that's fine. But I'm using it as a teachable moment.
But we're deviating so far from that in our society, man. I mean,
the expectations on these kids are too high, I think, a lot of times for the future. And that's what I wanted to get to is like, if you're 9 and you want to take it seriously, great. Take it seriously. Have a great time with it. Parents help temper the expectations because you're the adult there. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, realize that when they're 18, they're not getting a scholarship when they're 9. Don't be thinking like, hey, we're putting all this money into this now. Yeah. So you, by the time you're 18, will be either getting drafted professionally or going to get a college scholarship. Like, that's just way too far away to start expecting something.
And stuff you don't know.
It doesn't change that much when they're in high school, though. I mean...
Really?
No, I'm just saying what a parent's expectations of their child should... Now, the intensity level changes. There's a lot that does change. What I'm talking about specifically is a parent's expectation of their child.
Yeah.
I really think that we place unreasonable expectations on ourselves, and it needs to be simplified and pulled back. And parents are so guilty of this, I think, at higher levels, and I think it's just really detrimental to players.
Well, one of the things you said right away when you said expectations, I have this humorous moment in my mind before when I was about to have my first kid, and I thought, here's what my kid's going to be like. You ready? He's going to listen to me. He's going to be like the most awesome athlete. He's going to do this and do that, and this is going to be his mannerisms, and this is his personality. I don't know why I did that. It's because I had a lack, of experience. I didn't know anything. And so that's what I expected. But that's unreasonable. There's no way I would even know who this human being is going to be. And so I have to remind myself of that moment where I was already asking expectations on a kid that wasn't even born yet. I got to keep that in mind on a daily basis.
That's a great perspective.
With my kid. When he sits there and goes, do I want to do this or do that? I'm not going to force anything on him. I'm going to try to nurture those commitments that he made. But at the same time, I'm not putting expectations on something in the future that I have no idea what's going to happen next. So I because you're pointing it in that way. You're going to do this. And then you're like, I'm going to tell this kid's future. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. So I wrote down here on my board.
Yeah, you did.
Expect less equals do less.
Lower the expectations, do less.
Which is Tim's mantra.
Do less.
At times, like
You're going to get a tattoo of that, aren't you?
I
love that.
I don't know. I mean,
yes.
at some point,
I'll do it.
you have affected my heart, Tim, and I am more of a sloth than I've ever been before.
Oh my gosh!
I was going to say,
kidding,
I
I'm
expected
kidding.
you to work a little harder this off.
I'm joking, but it's a joke. But the reality is, I do think that naturally, especially if you're an athlete, if you are a competitor, your expectations are going to be so high. You don't need to push them that much higher as much as you need to temper them in the moment. And like we talked about on past episodes, stay in the moment.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes ahead of time. What can I do in the next 5 minutes to be the best version of myself, to build up the people around me, to be the best teammate, to be the best athlete I can be, to become a better player. When you start looking to even a year in the future or 6 months, like it's just too far, in my opinion, to start expecting things of yourself.
Yeah, we're painting a pretty negative picture of expectations right now. Are all expectations negative?
Absolutely
I mean,
not.
well, okay, then.
So you can have-
the next question is, well, how do you decide the difference? What expectations are good? What ones are bad? What's realistic? What's not? How do you separate? How do you differentiate between those expectations?
I was thinking, so you schedule a trip to Disney World, right? So like a kid's expectations going to Disney World are going to be like, aside from weather or a flat tire or plane cancellation, like the expectation is going to be there. You're going to be there. I think, when you, as a baseball player, you put expectations on, hey, I'm going to make it to the big leagues. Like you have no control over that stuff. And I think where a positive expectation becomes a negative is when you start changing, and I think I even wrote it down, a could into a should, right? So like expectations for me, it's like, man, I could be playing in the big leagues all year this year. I could. There could be a miracle that happens. Tell me no. It could totally happen. So I could
say I won't.
I could be in the big leagues all year, right? I could do that. I could be pitching in the World Series, next World Series. I could do that. Now, the problem where it becomes negative is when you start saying, I should be pitching in the big leagues. I should be pitching I should be doing. And to me, that's kind of the, when you have the positive and the negative. There's nothing wrong with expectations in and of themselves if you're using them as a, this is my goal type attitude. Like, my expectations are to be in the big leagues. I'm gonna train that way. I'm gonna, conduct myself that way. But at the same time, I can't put myself there.
Yeah, and there's a time, I think there's a lot of young kids that have low expectations for themselves. I think when you're talking on a professional level, pretty much everybody that has gotten to the professional level has had high expectations at some point on themselves. And they've lived up to those. I mean, if you think about that, if you've ever even been drafted or sniffed even college ball, you're a great athlete.
Yeah.
And you've already had some high expectations, and you've met some of those, So that's the thing about it to remember is there's always that side of, I am a good player. I know that I can do. I have done in the past some really good things in this game. And to know that you can do again, or you can reach a new level. Like I remember being young in the minor leagues, and my first stop was in Tri-City. It was actually Troy, New York, the Tri-City Valley Cats, Houston Astros at the time. It was their college, it was their college league. When you get drafted, you go straight to a short season team, and that was their short season team in the New York Penn League. And I remember going there, and I'm playing against all these guys from Stanford and all these major schools out there. And I'm thinking, man, I can play with these guys. Like these guys were playing in the College World Series a couple days ago, and now they're here, and I'm hitting better than they are, and I'm kind of seeing like that I can succeed at this level, and I'm going, you know what? I expect, I'm trying to play every day as if it's my last, but I'm expecting that if I can continue this, I'm going to get moved up, and I'm going to get another chance to succeed at another level. And then if I can succeed at that level, then I expect that I'll probably get another chance. So my expectations were that if I could continue to be consistent, my expectations were in consistency for myself, then eventually I was going to get challenged with a tougher challenge.
Yeah.
And that for me was something I looked forward to. I expected to happen eventually in my career. I didn't know how far I would go. I wasn't expecting to get to the big leagues and be a big leaguer and I'm going to be an all-star and I'm going to win a World Series and I'm going to do all this stuff.
Yeah, you did.
I did. Honestly, and people say like, oh man, isn't this just the thing you dreamed of when you were 12? And I'm like, no, I never did. I didn't know anybody.
That's awesome.
I never expected myself to make it to pro ball. I didn't know anybody that ever did that. So those expectations for me were tempered at the level I was at.
The heart of this is motivation. What you did was you had these high expectations for yourself, and you kind of funneled that into a positive motivation, right? Like, I expect this of myself. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get this opportunity to move on. I think when expectations are negative is when you're motivated by something you shouldn't be motivated by, like to please your parents. Like, my parents think this of me. Other people expect this of me. The media expects this of me. And so, all of a sudden you're doing things to kind of please people, to kind of fill someone else's expectation of you and just to kind of change the way that you're viewed a little bit. And your motivation kind of changes from a healthy motivation to an unhealthy motivation. Does that make sense at all?
Or an obligated motivation.
Yeah, that's probably a better way of putting it is more an obligation, and you can lose some of the joy in what you're doing when that happens.
On a very, very small sample analogy, I don't like wearing dress shoes. I don't like them. They got like heels on the back, and it just my posture and my lower back. Like, I don't like it. But certain places you go, you should wear dress shoes. And I'm just sitting like, don't put that on me. But if that's like the rule, if that's what it is expected of me, then I'll do it. That's just kind of a bad analogy that I think of when you're talking about stuff. You're like, well, I'm just going to do it to do it.
Yeah,
that's all I got.
The thing to me when you talk about motivation and expectations is, I think the pressure. That's what always comes to mind. The higher the expectations, no matter whether it's coming from you or somebody else, the more pressure you're going to end up feeling. And is that going to benefit you or not? You got to know yourself. We've said that so many times on these podcasts, the importance of knowing yourself, knowing what does motivate you, what's going to be good motivation, what's not. And for the longest time, I thought that having this carrot out in front of me in my career, motivation-wise, was as long as I can reach that, then I'll feel good. I'll feel like I've actually reached those expectations and I'm going to make it. And then I would reach that carrot, and guess what? I'd have to have another one. And then I'd have to have another one. Every time I reached that carrot, it didn't, like you said with the trophy, it didn't really satisfy. And
it's not what you thought it would be.
The expectation wasn't really met. Yeah. Even though you met it, what you thought was the expectation, there was still something else that you hadn't done yet or you hadn't accomplished.
And I think, Zoe, I know you well enough that really what has driven you that whole time was just the process of getting better, right? Like that's, you and I have had this conversation several times that, that it wasn't really the expectation of the achievement as much as it was getting in the cage and figuring out your swing, honing in on it, and just the challenge of making an improvement and getting better today than you were yesterday, better tomorrow than you were today.
I love that challenge.
That has been kind of the expectation has been just to get better.
Yes.
That's been a driving force and a motivator for you.
I would say that, yes, getting better, but also the expectation of meeting the challenge. Just meeting it. Whatever the challenge was, meeting it right there. Like that for me was all, at the end of the day, that's really what I love about it.
Yeah.
That's what I really love about the game. And you know what? If there's no challenge, if I felt like, man, I got this licked. Now my swing's perfect and I'm hitting the ball really well, and I would feel an emptiness in the game in those times in my career. Not to say I would ever slack off, because I knew that the game was going to really quickly catch up to me, and there was the next pitcher the next day was probably going to get me. But in those moments, I started realizing, man, I just love the challenge. And at the end of the day, when I miss the game itself, yes, I'll miss the clubhouse and things like that we've talked about. I'm going to miss that challenge and the desire to meet the expectation of the challenge. Because what the game does is it does expect the best of you every day. And that's not just the best of your skill, the best of your physicality. It's the best of your mind. It's the best of your your soul. I mean, because you're out there like trying to pull off something that is the hardest thing to do in sports. You know, if you're a hitter and if you're a pitcher, the precision with which it takes to try to do the things consistently that you're trying to do, it's so difficult, you know, and we expect so much, and yet we're let down so many times in the game. But you gotta, it calls you back into that fight every day. It calls you back into the expectation of, hey, are you going to meet me, or are you going to just bow out? And if you're an athlete, if you're a competitor, if you're a ball player, you're going to meet that, you know, and love that part of it instead of saying, oh, it's about getting the trophy. It's about getting the contract. It's about getting the scholarship. It's about getting something way far in the future. It's not about that. That's what I got.
That's gold. That's gold. What are you thinking, Tim? You're taking some notes there. What stood out?
I wrote down do something. I think a lot of times people have these expectations on, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do something every day. Even if you don't have a goal or a necessary end in mind, there's an expectation there. Just try to do something as a person. You know, whatever your craft is, like just do something. I know I said do less.
I was going to say, does that work?
Do something
against?
Like, you know, you don't want to be complacent. You know, and there's a difference between being content and being complacent. If you're content, it means you're happy in whatever circumstances you're at. And complacent, it's like you're kind of lazy. You just want to be where you're at, and nothing maybe ever changes. And there's a level there that you're expected. I mean, I expect this out of pretty much everybody I come in contact with. The people that I like the most are the people that are motivated in some way to just do something every day. It could be in a creative thing. It could be in their job thing. It could be just in reading a book. Like, I think as humans, we're always craving something. And so whatever your motivation is, it's to do something in that way. And I mean, that's my fault for putting expectations on other people, but like, I expect you guys to do stuff.
We got to do an episode on motivation. I mean, that's probably like a 5-part.
You're the one that tied motivation.
I know.
We're always talking about that in a way with stuff, which is great that it gets there eventually. Always with these.
Yeah, these episodes bleed over for sure. What were you going to say, Zoe?
Well, I was just going to say, Tim. I mean, that is the essence. If anybody knows Dim Tillard, I mean, this guy is going all the time, always doing something, you know. And
do you sleep? No, you do not sleep. No way.
Barely.
Right.
Tim,
I'm such a light sleeper.
Do you or do you not have a
note? Potty training, so
Do you have a notepad
so
next to your bed? True or false?
Okay, true. However, it's changed. It's on hotel stationery, or it used to be exclusively, but now I have like 1,000 notes in my phone. Like, my mind is always running, cannot stop it. And it was, for a long time, I really disliked it. It bothered me. I bothered myself.
You finally
ashamed.
Well, I know. I finally embraced it and go, you know what? That's fine. I just need an outlet for it.
Bro, there's no
Twitter was born. But now there's Show and Go.
There's no other mind like yours in the world, bro.
They've done studies.
You're signed up for a program whenever you croak.
Inconclusive. No, it doesn't. I don't want to put stuff on people because I feel like stuff maybe was put on me in certain ways, and I find myself doing that to my kids, and I don't want that. But I think as a human being, you do want to do stuff. You do want to get better in whatever you're doing. I'm not going to put that on somebody. Find out whatever it is that you have a passion for and go after it. Like, to me, motivation is not hard. I can look around the corner. I have motivation just inside me. It has nothing to do with circumstances around me. I just have motivation as a person to just do stuff.
Yeah, and it's obvious. And I think
your career is a representation of that. If you didn't, there's no shot you would have achieved as much as you have in your career, both on the field and off. I mean, it's remarkable, really, and there's no way that you would have achieved that without that fire inside you. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
I know that all of us in this room have that. I mean, I've seen it in each of you guys. I know I have it individually. But what about, I mean, there are parents and coaches and even players out there that are saying, well, what about, this guy seems like he has such low expectations for himself that he's not ever really pushing himself. He's not ever really challenging himself. Is there room for challenging a teammate to have higher expectations, or challenging your child, or challenging your team or your players to say, hey, you know what? We could be way better than we are. We're just playing down to our competition or whatever. If you're a coach and you feel like your team should have played better, At what point is the expectation, does there need to be that kick in the pants to say, hey, you should expect more of yourself?
Are you allowed to say kick in the pants anymore?
I don't know.
We need a
Probably
different
not.
analogy.
Probably
I'm
not.
offended by that. Do you mind rephrasing that? A coaching principle that I definitely buy into is that players naturally rise to the level of expectation. I really believe that. I think that if you go out and you tell your team that, guys, we're just not that good, we're just going to try hard, we're going to get better. Well, yeah, I mean, if that's the expectation, then they're gonna rise to that. But if you tell them, look, you're capable of more. You have more inside of you that has not been tapped yet. I believe in you. I know that when you put in the hard work and the effort and make the sacrifices, that you're capable of doing something special that you haven't done before. And they're naturally, if that message is repeated, they're naturally going to rise up to that. I really believe that. And so to answer your question, yeah, if some player out there hasn't ever expected much of themselves, it's a healthy thing to raise that bar. There's story after story about people in society that have achieved more than anyone thought they could. You name it, the area of our society when there's people out there that have overachieved and people didn't believe in them, but they had higher expectations for themselves, or somebody placed that upon them, and they rose to that level.
This is where it gets really, really important to be realistic, though, at the same time, because if you raise that bar too high as a parent or a coach or even a player for yourself, it can be detrimental to the morale of yourself or your team or your child. Like if you say, hey, you should be way up here, and you're way down here. Like, it has to be somewhat attainable, right? We talk about different kinds of goals.
Yeah, goals are definitely in here somewhere. I mean, it's expectations and goals can be a little bit synonymous, I think. That a good goal, has to be measurable. It has to be realistic. Has to be attainable. And it has to be a little bit flexible, too. They can change. You get off to a great start, your expectations can change. Your goals can change. You get off to a bad start, again, you have to be flexible in there. You have to have some variability, but yeah, I mean, you don't want to set the bar so high that it's unachievable. You don't want to set a player, if you're a parent, you don't want to set your child up for failure and setting an unrealistic goal and something they can't achieve. And same as a coach, you want to see progress there.
I think it's true in baseball and in life. I mean, to me, we're talking about expectations, expecting what's coming in the future. We have no idea. Like, I've expected things in my career, and things have not gone my way. Things that I would call, you ready for this word? I'm about to drop it, unfair. Unfair.
You went there.
I went there. So when you're talking about your team, you're talking about the parents and the coaches and the player. Like, you can go out there, and you may be talking about a guy like, hey, our team, hey, we need to play better, or we need a challenge, or whatever it is. They may be going out there hitting line drives at every single player that's out there. In the field. They may be crushing balls, and it's just not going their way. And heaven forbid, as a pitcher, you're hitting your spots, and guys are dinking the ball all over the infield, and it becomes hits, and then it becomes runs, and then losses. Like, there's so much stuff out there that you cannot control. Putting unrealistic expectations on top of that it cannot be done. It is foolish to think that you could put expectations on, your kids or a teammate in that way, or, I mean, anybody else in society. And you're driving the car and you expect them to run the car correctly. Well, clearly they haven't driven around Nashville very much.
Yeah, you made a point there that I want to touch on, and that's
shot
is control. The idea of control is really important there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we try. We have these expectations, and there's so many variables out there that we have no control over. None. You can't control the weather. You can't control the umpire. You can't control the fans. You can't control your parents. You can control yourself, though.
You just said umpire? Easy, man. This show's rated G.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Yeah, don't get me started.
Sorry.
Yeah, but anyway, I was just going to – I think that just being mindful of the things that you do have control over, that your expectations need to be within that realm of things that you have control over. And you're going to – it's maddening. People drive themselves crazy trying to control things that they have no control over whatsoever, and they just beat their head up against the wall, and it leads to a lot of frustration and stuff, I think, when that happens.
Yeah, that's why I cannot stand statistical expectations for myself.
I thought you were about to say an
know.
umpire's name. Like when you said, that's why I can't stand, I thought you were going to throw in.
Oh, come on. Come on. Give me a break.
Come on, umpires.
I got kicked out of one game in my entire career.
Ooh, we should bring that up every episode.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
No,
I appreciate it. No, statistical expectations are ridiculous. I've done it to myself over and over and over again in my career, and it just ends up in a bad way. It just drives you crazy because you can't control it. You can do everything right and still get a bad result.
Absolutely.
And you can do everything wrong and get good results.
Yep.
And I've learned over the years that what I'm trying to expect of myself is processing what I'm supposed to learn that day. Yeah. That's one of the things I try to expect of myself every day at the major league level. Yes, I am going back to fundamental things like having fun. I'm going back to fundamental things like trying hard. I mean, seriously, like simple things. And then at the end of the day, what I expect is for me to look back at the day and go, okay, what can I change? What can I adjust? What can I do better? How can I grow from this? Good, bad, whatever it was. Like, that's what I'm expecting of myself, not like expecting something of tomorrow. I'm just expecting how am I going to take today and build on that.
I think that has to. I don't know what do you want to say
I
something?
got a really, really great thing to say,
All
but
right,
I want to.
go.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We're talking about expectations and we're talking about the future and we're talking about all this stuff. It just hit me. Shortening your expectations. Like when you start getting too far away, they start getting unreasonable. The shorter they are, like. I
mean,
want to have
more temporal,
in the moment, like maybe it's that day or that week. Like, you know what? My expectation this week is to get, to have 15 more quality at bats. I don't know what that means. I'm not a hitter, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so this week I'm going to do way more flat ground, or I'm going to try to work on my curveball. Like expectations of just very short, like shortening it up so that you don't get too far ahead. Because you can do that.
Like that.
You can shorten up an expectation.
I like that.
That's awesome.
Now, what do you got?
Well, what I was going to say.
Top that.
I am about to top that. No, I'm just kidding.
You're so educated.
He's in college all the time.
Yeah.
You say that, and I'm about to talk about a book. So I think a lot of what we're talking about is a difference of mindset, and there is a terrific book out there. It's by a woman named Carol Dweck called Mindset. Zoe, have you read this?
No, but I have it sitting on my nightstand.
Oh, you got to read it. It's changed my life.
it up, dude.
Tim, have you read it? Have you never read it?
Man, I don't remember the last book I read.
Okay, so there's a woman named Carol Dweck. I think she's a professor at Stanford, and she wrote this book about. It's called Mindset, and I'm going to ruin it for you. I know you want to read it, but there's two mindsets. Okay, there's the fixed mindset, and this is the mindset of someone who is very result oriented. This is the mindset of someone who emotional state, their value is the roller coaster. When things are going well, they're way up here. They're on top of the world. When things are going bad, they're down there. All their weight is placed in the basket of the result. That's the fixed mindset. Okay, their goal is the outcome. The growth mindset person, win or lose, succeed or fail, really isn't the main thing. The main thing is growth. The main thing is getting better. The growth mindset person doesn't look at the scoreboard or the statistic line and put all their eggs in that basket and find their value or their worth in that. They find their value and worth in, did I get better today? Did I get better? Their expectation, we're talking about expectations here. The fixed mindset person's expectation is the statistics, the wins, the losses, the outcomes. The growth mindset person, their expectation is simply growth. That's it. And when you have the growth mindset, you have so much more joy. You have freedom. You have autonomy. You're motivated by the opportunity that awaits you. You learn about yourself. You can find so much joy and motivation and creativity in what you can accomplish and how you can grow, how you can develop, how you can get better. And it's completely liberating, really, when you think about things in that term. Now, it's hard to do that. I mean, especially, I can't imagine for you guys who are completely evaluated day in and day out on your performance, and you're constantly under the microscope. But if you can find a way to detach from those numbers and those statistics and buy into the growth mindset and let that be your motivation and where you put your emphasis, I think it can be a really, really powerful thing.
I love that. I mean, I'm a big fan of that growth mindset stuff, which is why I got the book. I heard about it. I read a book called Mastery a couple years ago. Actually, it was last year.
That's in my Amazon shopping cart right now, I think, Mastery by George Leonard. It's another book that really hits on the growth mindset. Really, really important. Also, Ken Ravizza, who just passed this past year. Kenny was just an incredible mental skills coach. He was the one that introduced me to that book. One of the best in the game, one of the best ever in sports psychology, Ken Ravizza. And this is what this guy gave to me and said, hey, you need to read this book. So if you're a young athlete or you're even a professional athlete and you think, it's probably just wishy-washy, it's not for me, like, this is where things are going. Like, if you haven't read stuff like this and started thinking like this is where you need to get to. Ken Ravizza is a trailblazer here. I mean, he's one of the founding fathers of sports psychology, especially in baseball. Heads up baseball, the mental game of baseball, all that stuff it's gold. If any players are out there that haven't read these books, it's fantastic, and it'll definitely change you.
Well, I think once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Early in my career, none of this stuff really existed, or we didn't see it. Now we see it, and we're like, there's something to this. I got to do work. I got to sit there and learn about this stuff rather than just wing it and run out there completely oblivious. This is what people are gaining edges on when it comes to how they're going to deal with success, how to deal with failure, what they're going to do in their daily life to get to that point. And it is an advantage. I mean, you're talking about stuff that people that are not doing this are way behind.
Let me ask you guys this. How would this have changed your life if you had just a little bit more of a growth mindset as a high school kid?
Well, it definitely would take a lot of stress away, because your focus is in a more controllable area. For the longest time, my focus has been in areas that I thought I could control. You really think you really think at some level, man, I got this figured out, and I'm going to hit 300, or I'm going to, be the MVP, or I'm going to do this or that. Like, you just can't. Those things you can't control. You might be a great player, and you might at some level be able to predict some of your stats, but the higher you go, the less you can predict because everyone's good. The parity amongst teams and players is so much more close and similar that you will fail a lot. And the line between success and failure is so thin, so razor thin, that you've got to recognize, like, this is just out of my hands. And so growth mindset is all about getting there.
Well, one of the things I think of early in my career, when I was like in high school playing Legion ball, I was playing with my brother. And if you think, all right, so my brother was like the oldest guy in the league. My brother was that big, giant, chubby kid that plays in the Little League World Series. You're like, check a birth certificate, right? This kid was just better than everybody else. And I remember one time he wrote down, he's like, this is what I'm going to do this summer. I'm going to hit this many home runs, RBIs, average, blah, blah, blah. And he was struggling because every pitcher knew who he was. I mean, this guy's on the front page of newspapers. Remember newspapers? So everyone knew who he was, and every pitcher's like, I'm not throwing to this guy. And they tried to walk him. Well, his thing was like, he starts chasing pitches, right? And he ends up not doing as well as he, could have done. That was beyond his control. He couldn't tell the pitcher what to throw. Absolutely. And that was a learning curve for me. Like, there is so much stuff out of our control. And to me, getting too far ahead of that is very toxic. It can mess with you. And that's why I said shorten up the goals. One of the things I don't know if I like to live by this or not, but I heard it and I thought it was great. I like to under promise and over deliver. Right. So using that with expectations, like, not that you want to lower them so you can, hey, I made it.
Where did you get that from?
I don't know. My agent.
We all know where you got that from. And he's going to come for you. He's gonna say
He stole it.
He's
He
going to
stole it
track
from
you
somebody.
down.
Stole my phrase.
Yeah, but that's the idea. Like, give yourself something to obtain, to reach that point. And if you start putting
Absolutely.
unbelievable things on yourself, expectations of I should be here, and it can spill out in everyday life. I shouldn't be this angry when I talk to my boss. I shouldn't do this. Like my expectations, they shouldn't expect me to do this. You're putting that on yourself. People are putting that on you. And once you take that off of yourself, you stop putting that on other people, which to me is probably worse than putting it on yourself. I'd rather you put expectations on yourself rather than on me. But I'm biased.
No, that's a good rule of thumb. If you're going to expect too much of someone, make sure it's yourself and not someone else.
Yeah.
Because that's a quick way to
That's a quick way to be a really bad teammate and
Yeah.
alienate yourself.
yeah, that's not going to help your relationships.
I feel like we went on a bunch of rabbit trails on this episode. I don't know about you guys, but
Expectations is such a broad but all-encompassing topic.
it's so valuable, though.
We're always thinking about it.
Ben, you did say carrots. Remember he said carrots earlier?
I did.
Oh, I see. I
Rabbit
see what you did there.
trails,
Place. Yeah.
Carrots.
We
Carrots,
followed the
rabbits.
rabbit.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Good episode, though.
Oh,
Have
this was-
is this long enough, Tim?
Yeah, no, I think we met our mark. We're good. Do we want to wrap up or just
You think people
like one sentence or no?
You think people want to hear us keep talking?
No.
No.
Nobody wants us here.
They're done. They're done listening.
Checked out. Attention span is
Yeah.
gone.
I
20
checked
minutes
out
ago.
at minute 20, so what do you got?
Good episode.
Well, that does it for this episode of Show and Go. If you have any questions or comments, topics you'd like to hear discussed on future episodes, feel free to interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Show and Go. And make sure to visit our website, theshowandgo.com. And listen, I'm being very serious here. Please write a review. If for some reason in the podcast universe it helps, we need that. Give us 5 stars or 6. Just get it done. It's not hard. It takes 5 minutes. Come on.
1 minute.
1 minute. Yeah, 30 seconds. I'd also like to thank the boys of the Theocast podcast for letting us use their equipment today and every day.
And download Theocast also.
Yeah, Theocast is legit.
Terrific podcast.
They're paying us to say this.
Not
No, I'm just
paying
kidding.
us to say.
On behalf of myself, Zoe, J Money's not here, unbelievable, and Coach, thanks for listening and join us next time on
The Show and Go.
So what do we call that episode? That episode's called Expectations / Motivation /
It's good, man. All that stuff runs together.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It runs together.
Well, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to sit there and just section it off.
Tim,
It
at
is.
1 hour, 1 minute.
Hour, 1 minute.
I had an idea and it didn't come out right. I need you to edit it out.
1 hour, 1 minute.
101. I said something like.
Is it when I?
It was like about
I interrupted
man. No, well, I was gonna make a comment about simplifying expectations. Even at the highest level, and it was like, yeah, you should have the same expectation as little leaguers. That I was like, what am I?
I do remember that
What am I talking about?
of having
As
fun.
soon as I said that, I was like, I'm so. God,
I love this. This is what's so fun about the podcast.
take that out. Just kind of. It was like a 5 minute. You know what I'm saying? I was like,
Totally.
I don't even remember, dude.
I was like,
I'm even gonna put a little red mark that goes.
oh
there,
God,
the
please don't.
listener. This guy was talking about God knows what.
I was like.